First of all, anybody who says Oakland hasn't done anything with respect to the process of building a stadium for the Raiders proves they don't know what they're talking about at all and has no business talking on this subject. And that just occurred, or even tweeting on this subject on Twitter. There was some person never heard of who made that tweet, and then Vinny Bonasori of the LA Daily News has been bullying me with this idea that he knows more than I do about this when he has no absolute knowledge of this at all, liked the tweet, proving he knows nothing. The tweet said Oakland's done nothing and had nothing but talk. No, absolutely not. Let's go step by step through where we are with this process. First of all, Oakland has had the Coliseum Land, well, since 1966. And the plan has always been to demolish or partially refurbish the Coliseum Stadium for the Oakland Raiders. And that notion has been in existence at least since 2009. Then, between 2010 and 2011, an infrastructure plan for what has come to be known as Coliseum City was finished, and the financing for that already set aside. The cost, $123 million. That is in place, and it has been in place for some time, and that's a big piece. So what are we left then? We are left with a situation where the Raiders, starting in 2014, and actually just, if you want to really adjust it even more, early 2013, have been presented with no less than 20 different types of plans to build a stadium at that site in Oakland. And they've had those plans, and the reason have varied because they had different combinations of financing. At one point, and I remember Mark Davis told me this, he had $400 million. That was 2014. Then he adjusted it upward to $500 million. In changing from Gene Kwan to Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf, we went from Kwan, who was more open to some type of public financing, openly talking about it, to Schaaf, who was not. I'm not saying that Gene wanted to sell the tax store. No, not at all. But there were a number of situations where Gene was more amenable to using some kind of public subsidy that isn't the case today. And there's a reason for that. A very sound reason, a very technical reason, a very legal reason. Redevelopment. There was a thought that even though California Governor Jerry Brown, who was at one point mayor of Oakland, was working to kill redevelopment, that redevelopment would be saved and you could actually use part of tax increment revenue to finance a stadium for the A's. But court battles to save redevelopment failed as recently as 2013, and so plans had to be revised. A lot of us in Oakland really believe that with redevelopment, we had an excellent shot at easily building a stadium for the Raiders. But Jerry Brown taking redevelopment away hurt that. Fortunately for us, over the last 12 years at least, there have been more and more private financing tools that have come to bear on stadium financing than ever before. And stadium design, construction, configuration, and layout have changed so that there are more ways for football organizations and the NFL to make money solely within the stadium edifice. I'll give you, as the prime example of what I'm talking about, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey for the New York Giants and the New York Jets. Now, coming back to Oakland, we have had, and admittedly, a situation where the city and the county didn't see eye to eye on building stadiums because you had elected officials that were more concerned about their petty interests and I say petty, than the overall interests of the county and the city, let alone the desire to prove that the collective had a will and initiative to complete big projects. That was an ongoing problem, but that problem has been solved. And the problem has been solved for a very key basic reason. It's called a credit rating. When organizations like Fitch evaluate the credit rating for the city of Oakland or the county of Alameda in this instance, one of the factors they look at is something called leadership. And as was done in a report written last year in March of 23, if memory serves, see, March or May of 2015, regarding by Fitch. Fitch specifically noted that it was the county of Alameda, okay, that had the economic muscle that allowed the positive refinancing of Coliseum Joint Powers Authority related bonds. It was right there in black and white. However, it also noted the fear that the city and the county were on the verge of losing, quote, all, unquote, of its sports teams, of their sports teams. Now, fast forward to 2016 and really to late 2015, there were a number of come to Jesus moments with the financial community, with the rating agencies community that were private, that led to a meeting of leadership. And those happened after Oakland Alameda County Supervisor Nate Miley, if some of you remember, went public with the idea of splitting the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda and saying the county doesn't want to have anything to do with the Raiders. And a number of us privately told Nate that was the wrong thing to do, the wrong way to go. It sent a bad message to everybody, and that we had to think collectively about how to build our city rather than publicly airing out our petty differences among elected officials. That was going on. That stopped. It took Miley's moment, in a sense, to press the city and the county to get together and realize that, hey, they were stronger with each other than without each other. The idea of defeasing the bonds is still there. Now, what does that mean? It means paying down $167 million to go through a process of paying off the bond underwriters for the remaining debt on the Raider bonds that were originally issued in 1996 to refurbish the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Stadium to bring back the Raiders from Los Angeles to Oakland. All right? That's always on the table, and that's on the table today. So where we are after a number of fits and starts, after a situation that Floyd Gephardt rightly pointed out was dysfunctional, it's no longer dysfunctional. The city and the county have went in the right steps. So during that time, the city of Oakland's had a general plan Congress that approved a land plan and the approvals that basically allow a stadium to be done now, and like that. Meanwhile, the Oakland Raiders hired Larry McNeil as their stadium point person earlier this year. Larry McNeil went on a very quiet process, kept very quiet, of making a new cost study, something that Oakland District 7 Councilmember Larry Reed told me needed to be done because the first cost study that we had, which was done in 2012, was outdated, and we needed to have a new one done. And I say cost study, I mean cost study for a new stadium for the Raiders. This has been active for some time. And so now, I have to be honest with you, I haven't got enough information to tell you where that cost study is, but I can say that the situation is such that a number of bids have been taken from construction organizations on building a stadium for the Raiders in Oakland. From personal experience in urban planning and working for the city, that cost study should be done by now. It's in the possession of the Raiders. Meanwhile, an architect was hired, and I am told by another public official that drawings for the stadium exist. I can say where they are, but I don't want to at this point, and I'm going to leave that alone, at least for this vlog. And I'm told that the stadium is impressive. It looks something like the Seattle Seahawks Stadium. I've said this before for those of you who watch. And where it covers over the crowd and yet leaves the field exposed. So we're down to points of what I call minutia. That is, we have infrastructure financing done. We know what the infrastructure is going to, structure improvements and repairs and additions are going to be. We know what the stadium is going to look like. We have an idea what's going to cost, $1.2 billion. That's what it's going to cost, $1.2 billion. The land is valued at somewhere around $150 million. We know that. We know that we have financing from Fortress. We know where the Raiders can fit in. We know the NFL can fit in. And something else, too. The NFL has been working with the city of Oakland now for over a year on this. Because the NFL has stated more than once that it wants the Raiders to remain in Oakland. And has acted as a consultant to Oakland Mayor Libby Schaaf over this year-long relationship. Okay? So that's where we're at. We're at the point where all we need is really for the Raiders and the NFL to say, okay, build it. And we'll get there later. But I know the parties are dotting the I's and crossing the T's and gussying up the artist renditions for the NFL owners meeting in December, and they're going to make it. But to say Oakland has done nothing, especially after what I presented you now, is to basically say that you're really an ignorant person. I'm just being really bluntly honest.